There we go. And
Hello,
we're live.
everybody. Here we are. We're live again. We're coming to you live from Jumping Instructors Live. And we have a great show planned for you today because one of the biggest issues for most professionals and riders is how to get their legs in the proper place to be able to balance and make their riding position more effective. So today we have three hosts with us today. And first I'll introduce my co-host and producer, Laura Kelland-May. And Laura's a Canadian senior hunter, jumper, equitation, hack judge, and steward. You're also, what else did you do with Canada? The instructor certification?
Yep. So, competition coach specialist.
That's why I can't say it, right?
There you go. I like that. That's a lot of stuff.
All right.
A lot of stuff.
Take it away, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you? Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Randy. And we have a special guest today, Robert Roble.
Hey, Robert.
Hi, Robert. Robert's visiting us today from where are you from there, Robert?
The Shadow of the Missiles, Cocoa, Florida.
Right. So Robert is a USEF large R hunter breeding, equitation, and jumper judge. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And he is an 11-time national champion and winner of 10 Silver Stirrup Awards. Thank you very much, Robert, for being here with us today. I'd also like to introduce Paddy. How are things on the mountain today, Paddy?
Beautiful. Very windy, but beautiful.
Paddy is a USEF large R judge and has judged some of the most prestigious shows in North America, including West Palm Beach, Sonoma, Pebble Beach, Devon, Harrisburg, Marshall Sterling Finals, Ocala, and West Coast Pony Finals. Thank you, Paddy, for being here with us as well. And of course, we have Randi. Thank you so much, Randi, for putting all this together. Really appreciate you getting things going and starting this live program and broadcast, because I think it's really making a difference for some of the people in the area.
Amazing the reactions we're getting, the responses.
It's true. It really is true. Randi Thompson has been coaching and certifying riding instructors for over 25 years. She's a horse industry legal consultant and expert witness, and is the founder of Jumping Instructors Live, and also has a list of other Facebook pages that we all
it goes on and on. Which brings up another point. Today we're using StreamYard, and we're actually showing to different destinations. So today we're also sharing this show to our dressage instructors show page. Hello, everybody. You're going to enjoy this because the basics we're sharing here are going to be the same as we use for the basics of any balanced rider, right, folks?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
in any discipline.
Basics are basics, and it all comes from your lower leg, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Got to stay over your lower leg.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get,
go ahead.
And if you want to get more, I want also to remind everybody that we do take questions and comments. If you have a comment, please put it in the comments of the jumping instructors or wherever you are. Just put it in the comments, and we do also appreciate your questions. And don't forget to share this too, because we want to get the word out that we're out here helping people. So make sure if you have a question or comment, you don't understand something, we really appreciate you getting involved with the conversation. If you're not quite sure what we're talking about, or if you have your own experience, share it with us.
We love to hear from you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
We'd like to learn too. If you have a better idea or a different idea, we'd like to learn also.
That's right.
So Sarah Montana says, so excited to hear what you all have to share with us today. Thank you, Sarah. She's close to me.
Nice seeing you, Sarah.
Yeah. So what is our first topic here today? We're going to talk about, are you centered over your leg, and why that is so important.
And I think that's probably, for what I found in my experience, especially from the toughest thing about teaching riding instructors is they were so smart. I couldn't come in there like I was teaching a student. I had people that actually challenged me. But what I learned was that the legs are the foundation. Originally, like with beginners, it's usually their seat. We teach them their seat and how do they use their reins first. But once they get past that point, everything goes to the foundation of their legs. And I compare it to if we're walking, we have to walk a certain way to be able to walk. Otherwise, we can't walk, right? So here we are talking about foundation in our riding, and there are people who have learned how to ride or who have been teaching riding in a way where their riders, basically, if you took the saddle out from underneath of them, they wouldn't be able to walk. So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you all kinds of, we know all the good exercises, right, folks? Because we've been doing this a long time. We kind
I
of
think between all of us, we probably have a pretty dang good library of things you can do to help
You do.
right?
Yes. All right. So what should we get started with?
Well, why don't we
Well,
go
we
over
can-
some of the, go ahead, Robert. No, you go.
Well, all right. Well, we were talking about base of support, basically. And my analogy is if you take a trophy and screw the base off the bottom, it's not going to sit up because it no longer has its base. It'll fall right over.
It's a good one.
That's a great analogy. I like that. A trophy, like all the trophies that you have sitting on your mantelpiece, right?
I love trophies. So I use that analogy. So then I tell everybody to stand up on their toes, and they can't do it and stay in good balance. So unless your heel is down, your heel is on the ground, you're not going to be as secure. I always start with the beginners working on that. And the best exercise for a forward seat saddle, and each saddle's different, and it's all about angles. That's why you have a racehorse jockey that's up on top of the horse. All their angles are very close. The more open your position is, working down to a hunt seat saddle, to a dressage saddle, to a Western, more of a chair seat type of saddle, it's basically trying to put you in the center of the horse's gravity. So with that in mind, for the hunt seat riders, you cannot have your leg in the right position and stay in balance without in a 2-point. So a 2-point is what I use a lot, even without stirrups. I tell people to get in a 2-point and keep their toes up, then their leg is in behind the girth where it's supposed to be. The longer the stirrup or the more open the saddle puts you, of course, the longer your stirrups are going to be, the more open your angles are going to be. You still have to have that base. Without it, you're a weeble wobble on top.
So I have a question.
The point of riding, whether you're riding Western, dressage, hunt seat, it's all the same.
I was just going to ask if you're in a saddle seat saddle or a Western saddle or a dressage saddle, you still have to have your base of support. So with the dressage people, they could still do their 2-point balancing over top of their leg to keep their base.
Well, they do all that. They all do that in their basic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
You don't have to sit in dressage, I don't think, until second level for their trots. So it's all important. Each step of it is in all of that, as we were saying, in all of the disciplines.
And you're going to start posting for the horse's back to keep it, you got to learn not to bounce, and you got to learn to pick a trot that your body can absorb so that you're not moving, so you're not bouncing on the horse's back. And the angles, the angles are going to be more open in a dressage saddle or a Western saddle. A saddle seat saddle is a little more closed angles. And your forward seat saddle and your racing saddle, all your angles are very close. But once again, you cannot do a 2-point. You cannot stay over your center if your legs are not in the right position.
Exactly.
So I use it a lot.
And that comes down to the saddles too. Like we have a lot of saddles, we've all seen them, where the stirrups are set in front of the rider's seat bones or behind the rider's seat bones. Depending on
those are the older type saddles, right? I think saddle styles have changed somewhat, and the dressage saddle. Now, it's interesting you mentioned that because the dressage saddle, the stirrup bar is closer to the middle of the saddle, so you're sitting more over top. Like the jumping and jockey's saddle, the stirrup bar is more out in front.
Yeah, and the Western is more in the center too. But again, it depends on the saddle maker and what discipline the saddle is made for. But either way, our goal is to help the riders be able to balance in the saddle they're using for their discipline. And as we're talking about, it all comes back to how they've created a foundation from, we're past the beginner. We're not talking beginners here. Beginners get their foundation by learning how to sit on their seat first. But after that, we all know our foundation goes into the anchoring our lower legs softly around the horse so there's no resistance or tension.
So we have a comment here. Philippe Brunel says riders need to understand that it takes time and time, no matter what style. How come I've had students, if I can coach them to jump in 10 lessons? That's interesting. And we have this also comment. How do we teach riders to keep the solid leg on a horse and not popping off every time they rise up?
That's a good
That's
question.
a good question.
So I want to mention something about this beginning thing when we're opening this up, that years ago when I had a stable in Tampa, before the finals, there was saddle seat, good hands class used to go to the final. And this girl would come and ride with me every morning at 5 a.m. before school to get an equitation lesson from me before she went to the saddle seat finals. So all of the riding, it has a connection if we just open our minds and let it have a connection.
Yes.
Because when they came to me, I said, well, I can't help her. And they said, oh, yeah, you can. Trust me. So, and
So it's
she
all
was
about
second. I
balance.
mean, it was good. Yeah, it's all about balance and
rhythm.
tight leg.
And,
So
I know what Randy was, sorry to interrupt you there, but I know that one thing that Randy's always commenting on is allowing the joints to flex and move and be relaxed on top of your horse so that you can keep that because you mentioned about sitting trot, and if you have tension, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to sit with your horse. So it's that relaxation as well that you have to consider.
Right, and that comes from, and there we can go into basic, here's some exercises you can do with your riders on the flat. The easiest way to teach a rider their position really is have them, like wherever you are right now, get out of your chair, just go ahead and stand up and pretend you're in the saddle, and you'll find that you're going to drop your seat a little bit, your knees are going to go down a little bit, right? Now feel that position when you're over there, and what happens with Laura, we're going to use you as a position.
Yeah, Laura, do it.
Okay, go, Laura. All right. So Laura, squat down a little bit.
Oh, look, she has a skirt on. How cute is that?
There she goes. So that's her basic ride. Now go back and do it again, but do it slower. You're such a good squatter. Oh, she
can hear you.
So you could see that as she was doing it, you'd actually do it slower, but just standing there in a position, you can lower and raise your seat, and you will feel if you can rise and lower your seat at the standstill, like Laura just did, it shows that you can flex your ankles, your knees, and your hips. Now, one other exercise, Laura, if you could, can you hear us back there when you're back there?
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
go
back.
back into that position again, all right?
Oh.
If you don't want,
I can't hear you back there.
I can't hear you back there.
So, Laura, I want you to go back there this time, and this time just lock your knees. Like, how many riders do we see that put their legs too far forward or they straighten their knees, right? Okay, now this is Laura without that flexible knee. Okay, no, you're flexing your knee. Make it straighter.
She can't hear you.
Oh, she can't hear me.
She can't hear you, so she's having fun. This is almost funny. So, Philippe, while we're trying to figure out where Laura's going, the answer to your question is that when they ask, I'm talking to Philippe, guys. Let me talk to Philippe. So, Philippe, that when that rider asks after the first 10 lessons, come up with some exercise that's hard to do with poles, and say, when you can accomplish this perfectly, then we will trot an X. And I find that the hardest part about being an instructor is keeping them occupied and busy so they get balanced enough where they can go ahead and jump. And people do it too soon because you don't want the person to leave and go do it with somebody else. And I mean, there's a million reasons. However, it's our job as instructors to keep them busy and occupied.
When children ask to jump, what they want to see is you putting a pole on a jump standard. And if you could probably put a pole on the jump standard and have it this high, and they'll say, well, I was jumping today. But it's really a pole on the lowest.
A raised pole.
Well, I've found, Philippe, that if they have a good posting trot, and some people are more natural than others, chances are they can trot a pole on the ground and practice a 2-point over it, working on their timing. Once they can do that, there's no reason why they can't hold main in a 2-point position and trot over a pole or a small X. There's absolutely no reason if your horse will allow that. It really does depend on the horse.
Right.
It's true. It's true. I know that if you skip too many steps, though, that it comes back to bite you. Sure. If they go to move up, you have to be a little careful with that. But I love that idea. I mean, you're right. If they can post, they can. There's a little girl up the road that rides at a friend of mine's farm, and she told me the other day she jumped an X, and I sent the trainer a thing. I said, she did what? She said, well, Patty, it was 3 inches off the ground. So just like
Exactly.
Laura said, she
Yeah.
was so excited. She was so excited. So yes. So I
one
think
of-
everybody wants to be at the end. They don't want to go through the steps in. Somebody said earlier about how much work it is. It's a sport, and it is like any other sport. If you want to be good at it, you must work at it in some way. If you can only afford 2 lessons a week, then you better be doing all the exercises in between. And if you can't afford a horse, figure out how to find a barn where you can work and you can get it. There's a million ways to do that. And
Yeah, you need
you just have to want to do it.
Need about 10,000 hours just to be good at something.
Yes.
Just
Exactly.
So
And
that's a lot of time in the tack.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you
As
really
pros,
want to do it, you can work.
As pros, we do it all the time. We're working on our position. Like one of you'd brought up the exercise, Robert, of the riding without stirrups, which we all love, right? Well, I grew up that way, so it was always easy for me. Learning how to ride with stirrups was hard for me. But you know, the thing that it helps people do. What does riding without stirrups help them do, Robert? Why do you like that exercise so much?
Because it makes you strengthen your core. A lot of people forget that your midsection, your core, has to be strong enough. Let's face it, you use every single muscle in your body to ride.
Yes.
So your core is very important. Start with a base, get your leg underneath you. A 2-point is an excellent exercise, whether with or without stirrups, depending on your level of competence. And then, like I said, if you think about it, you're working on your core as well. So I like the 2-point. I like a lot of posting. I like any exercises that teaches somebody or helps somebody strengthen their core as well. Starts from the base though.
But I like what you said at the beginning. If even standing on one foot, or like you said, the base of your trophy, that if you just even stand up and try to balance on your feet, that's a good core. Or the exercise balls, so sitting on an exercise ball, that's also an
I
excellent
love the
core.
exercise balls. I think they're great to do that. And if you get a great big one, I have to go let the dog in. Sorry.
That's right. Well, we were doing that. And one of my favorite exercises that we've discussed about in different shows that we can do with or without stirrups is the one where the rider sits 2 steps, or you can make it 3, or you can have it 4, but it's always sit 3 or 4 steps, then 3 or 4 steps of rising trot, then 3 or 4 steps of posting trot, keeping the same amount of numbers. And what that does is, it sounds easy to go from the 3, but the hardest part is when they get into the rising trot, because that's when they become aware of when they're falling back in the saddle or falling forward in the saddle. So that's why
Yeah.
that exercise comes in. And again,
Forces them to keep.
what did you say, Robert?
Never be afraid to grab a finger's worth of mane. And April, you sound like a committed rider. It's good to see somebody working hard to enjoy a sport. Don't see that all the time. Good for you, April.
Yes.
Good for
And
you.
use
That's
the neck strap,
perfect.
too. I don't know if you've used neck straps, Robert, but once I got into those, they make such a difference. They make it better for your lesson horses. They make it better for the riders. You just tie the neck strap or whatever you're using so it's where their hands are supposed to be. They add them underneath of their reins. And what it does is it teaches the rider how to keep their seat over their lower leg. Mainly is why I like it. But it gives them a place to balance where they're not balancing in the horse's mouth.
I
Exactly.
like also that up, down. I call it the up, down exercise, what you're talking about, standing up in your stirrups, 2-point for whatever, and sitting trot for whatever. I do go up, down. So stand up for 2, down for 1. And I find, in addition to making the riders stay over top of their leg, that exercise also forces riders to feel the rhythm of the horse, so that instead of being mechanical up, down, up, down, up, down, they also kind of relax and start feeling what the horse is. They're being more thoughtful about what the horse is doing underneath them, instead of being mechanical in their up, down posting.
That exercise also strikes me as one that would work on your core as well, because you can't collapse your midsection. You have to actually have a nice flat back to do that stand up for 2, if you're going to do it right.
Exactly.
So Inge says, love up, up, down, and down, down, up. Yeah, those are my 2 favorite as
That's
well.
great. Inge, is that a what kind of horse is that in the field there? Is that the
It looks like a Hoflinger, doesn't it?
Sure does.
well, I thought at first, but I think it's the other one.
The fjord. Yeah,
The fjord. I think it's the fjord. How cool is that?
So Philip says you are right. Core is everything. The bad habit that I have correct the most when I'm coaching is the rising trot. When you are balanced, you should never push yourself up in the stirrup, but the horse will rise you up. And that's kind of what I was talking about being mechanical. They're just rising up and down. They're not feeling.
Well, that's also part of the rider stage. Like they're mechanical at first where they rise and fall, but once they get to the intermediate level, they actually start rolling on their thighs. That's the difference. So when you're doing sitting 2, rising 3, whichever you're doing, and you add that in there, remember they should roll up on their thighs. That's the main purpose why people started taking stirrups away. So riders would go away from gripping with their knees so much to where they would feel that they're rolling on their thighs. Like when you go up in the saddle, your thighs will roll in when it's correctly.
Yeah.
And my riders have heard this a million times when they're learning how to pose to the trot. Every time you rise, think heel. So every time you rise, you step down into your heel.
Right.
That keeps the leg long, and it teaches them to get that knee low enough in the saddle to where there's a connection. There's no air between their knee and the saddle. That's their grip. That's their security as well.
Without tension or tightness. We have to teach them that, right, Robert? No tension or tightness.
It has to be an even connection between your lower thigh, the back of your knee, and your upper calf. And then if your leg is in the right place, it'll fall right behind the girth so that your lower leg is at the control panel, which all horses are schooled to respond from. You have to have your leg at the control panel. It's not at the control panel if it's sitting on the girth. If it's too far back, you're obviously going to be up on your thigh and using their neck for crutches.
Exactly. And then if you're trying to teach your student to ride without stirrups, if you do the up down thing, it really helps. Like try sit 5 times, whatever you need to do. And then all of a sudden you'll be able to add more and more and more to it. And their legs will get stronger and stronger. But it's a lot of work.
And have them count it out loud. It'll help them. And at first they won't be able to get past the number 3 at first because they'll forget how to count. Right?
Well, if
and then adults that couldn't get the days. You what?
If you have the right horse, the best way to develop a first-class seat and leg is being worked on the lunge line.
That's
Yes.
right.
Because you don't have your hands as a variable. You don't have to worry about steering. If you have the right horse, that is the best way to develop your seat. Even at the riding school I was at, we took turns lunging each other on Saturday morning. Got the school horses out and it got us some exercise.
So April also put another comment here. Thank you very much, April, for your comments here. When I do my 2-point without hands, without reins, I'm guessing, I tend to usually fall backwards after half a circle. When I start to fall backwards, I close my hip angle. That helps to keep me in position and not grabbing.
She's not using
Okay, so if you stand up on the ground and put your feet in front of you, you're going to fall back. Chances are her leg is slightly in front of her.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So then how much is that going to be the correct fit of the saddle?
A lot. If the saddle's up, you're going to play catch up the entire time you're riding. But hence, that's where the neck strap or the grab a little bit of mane come in handy with the 2-point, because it forces you to find your center and you post from there forward with an open and closing hip angle. She probably also has a tendency to post straight up a little bit instead of opening and closing her hip angle as she's trotting along.
Right.
That kind of goes hand in hand with falling back.
That's right. I agree.
Excellent. So I want to remind everybody, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the comments here. We'll try to address them. If you have any specific questions, like you could see we're doing. Also, you can if you know somebody who you would like to share this with or you think should be watching, please share it and let them know that we're live here now, or you can share the replay. We also do another program on Wednesdays at 1. And that is more in depth of kind of like what we're talking about now, rider position fixes, where we have discuss similar types of things, right? And That's going to be Wednesdays at 1. What else do we have going on, Randy?
Who's coming with us Wednesday? Is Meredith coming?
Yeah, Meredith Whitney.
Meredith Gallagher.
So Meredith Gallagher from
No.
Carroll Farm is going
Yeah.
to join us.
She's going to be joining us on Wednesday, and
What's
we're going
the
to be just
topic?
rider position fixes.
And Taffy's
Right.
going to take over for me because she thinks it's a fun thing.
Oh,
All right,
Taffy.
Gabby. All right,
That's your
now
good side.
tonight we have Dave Duke is coming on, and he's gathered a group of professionals from within the horse industry, including a very well-known race trainer who are concussion experts, and they're going to talk. One of the things with professionals in the horse business is how do you handle somebody that falls? How do you know if they've had a concussion? What do you do? What's the protocol? All the information that you've been wanting, we'll be bringing that to you. So watch us live tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or watch the replay. All right.
Right.
So
Well, I have a statement to make because
Okay.
I forget them if I. So my dog's
That has
here.
to be at least the bear.
No, it's just Ron. It's just Ron on the front porch. You'd
Oh,
think. So my statement is, the riders that take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lessons a week, and they ride 5 times a week and 2 lessons. They need to take the responsibility to make the effort to ride without stirrups on their own, because you're paying any of us to be teaching you. You've gotten to a level where riding out without stirrups is a good thing. So don't make us spend our whole lesson working on some things that you could work by yourself when you get to a certain level. So part of it is using your time wisely and wanting to get better. You really wanting to get better. And it's our job to motivate you when we're teaching you, but you have to motivate yourself when you're riding by yourself.
that's right. And there's so many exercises they can use nowadays.
Well, I'm glad you
Well-
said that, Randy, because this person, Vacus Pandy, says, hi. For novice riders, can you suggest some exercises to make the class session more interesting? Well, there's all kinds of things.
You have to make it fun, first of all. Try to make it fun. But we have weird ways of doing things, like we call them torturing them and everything. We're so mean as instructors, aren't we?
well,
we-
Well, I think a lot of pole work, like a novice rider, as we talked about earlier, a little tiny jump makes them think they've just jumped the Grand Prix puissance jump. So
Yep.
what about schooling figures?
Right.
To do a circle correctly and touch the track at each point and make it round, to do a serpentine and be accurate with changing your bend and changing your diagonal or changing your lead if you're at a point where you can canter a serpentine. All these things keep it interesting and keep their mind working on how accurate they are. And once again, they're teaching their horse discipline, which they don't have naturally, to be a good riding horse and to be a good partner. Schooling
That's true.
figures-
You can make it
poles
as
are-
difficult or as easy as you'd like, particularly if you're doing the riding school figures, but making it fun as well. Put pylons out so they can steer around them. And every time they go around one, give them a gold star or a high five or something like that. And then again, are you talking children? Or are you talking adults? And you'd have to kind of vary it depending on what level of person you're teaching.
But that's such a great question for any level of rider that you're teaching.
Exactly.
They get bored so easily. Go ahead, Robert.
All the novice riders that I've worked with over the years, they know how to do a circle, a serpentine, a half turn in reverse, a half turn, and be accurate with their change of bend and changing their diagonal or their lead when they change their direction officially back at the track. If it's a half turn, at X if it's a figure 8, or at several X's if it's a serpentine. I think learning to be accurate and focusing on your schooling figures being your circles being the same size, your loops being the same size, it's good for you, and it makes you use your aids.
And
Yeah,
so we added on to the end here to improve basic riding seat. So not only make it more interesting, but also to improve. So again, doing those things, but doing them in the 2-point or doing them over poles or being more specific with corrections of not just put your heels down, but when you get to the pole, push the weight down and give them more specific instructions on how to perform the exercise makes it more interesting. You gotta get them involved, ask them questions.
We're trying to create thinking riders is the big thing. I'm
Show
sorry.
them how to move with their legs. Show them that the horse will move away from pressure from their legs. It's not just the reins. That's a very important thing for them to learn. They're not riding a head and a neck, they're riding a whole body.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. The withers. You turn the withers.
Yep.
Turn the withers.
Turn the
It keeps
withers.
it very, very interesting I've had, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids that will focus and I keep their attention longer. It's all about being creative and like everybody says, try to make it fun.
Men interaction, because nowadays we're all using the Socrates, am I saying the right technique? And that is to know where somebody's learning is, or to get more communication going. You ask them questions. Like, for example, we're talking about flexibility of joints and whatever gait they're doing, right? Can you feel when your knees are locking up? Can you feel when your ankles are locking up?
Or what happens when you do this exercise?
Right,
and then hopefully they kind of get into their own self and say, well, when I do that exercise, I can feel my seat bones coming in the saddle or my weight coming down into my heel. And then you say, hey, did you feel that?
Right. So you start creating thinking riders by asking questions.
Exactly.
It's all about feel. It's all about feel. You can spoon feed people techniques and exercises, but if they can't feel, they're never going to truly be partners with that animal.
That's right.
I don't think.
I agree.
Right.
All right. I wanted to share before we go into this next question, how do you not fall on a horse's neck? We'll get back to that. But Robert, I promised I'd share you that exercise.
Yeah.
Your secret recipe?
I'm going to give you my secret recipe. So
I got my pencil ready.
Get your pen. Yeah, get your pens and pencils ready. Well, actually, this is just going to be the hardest exercise. It's going to seem so easy, but it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. All you have to do is as you guys are sitting here, which leg is your stronger leg? Usually it's the right leg with most riders, right?
That's what I was going to say, right.
Okay.
Paddy,
you're going to say left? Okay,
Yeah.
all you have to do the next time you ride is drop the stirrup of your stronger leg.
No, ride with one stirrup.
And your left side, well, they're both going to cry a lot. But what will happen first is your right side is going to cry because it's used to supporting your body position and keeping you up there. So it's going to be doing all kinds of weird things. And you're going to find your body shifting over to the left like every other stride. Wait until you try this, Robert. You'll be so embarrassed. Because it's such a shock when I do it, because I have to keep doing it. Every time I ride, I have to go back to practicing it because it tells me when I'm straight. So what will happen is it'll teach the rider how to keep over their weaker left leg, or for you, Paddy, your right leg. So without your right stirrup, the only way you can post is to actually get your body over that left, because most people are weaker on their left side, left seat bone. Most people, even the professionals, I've shown this to, are not able to do it the first few times, and they're in shock because they discover for the first time that their left hip hasn't been coming through for the posting trot. On the rising trot, the left hip should lead when they're on the left diagonal. The left lead, the left hip should be leading, right? All of a sudden they discover when they drop their right stirrup that they're not doing it. And what it does is it pushes the responsibility back on the rider, because all of a sudden we're teaching ourselves. It's the hardest exercise I've ever had to do, but it's the exercise I go back to all the time. Shut up.
That's Randy's
The
phone.
dog's barking, the phone ringing.
Not for beginners. It is not for, do not try this with beginners. This is only for your.
Now, see, Randy, I do that. I do it with beginners. I do it.
You do?
I do it with beginners. I do, especially if you have some old lunge line horse that's really good. I'll have them drop a stirrup and go back and forth, and drop a stirrup and go back and forth, and go and pick up the stirrups without looking, because that's another one. That's another one to do too. It's the same thing, but yeah, that's a great.
I like that one, particularly with novice beginner riders. Just take feet out, put feet back in without looking down.
Right.
That gets them aware of where it is. That's one of my safety check exercises before we go any further, is take your feet out, put your feet back in. But I wanted to go on to this from Jessie.
Is that from Jessie that was on Zoom the other night? Looks like her.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. Jessie, is that you? Can you type yes or no?
Yeah. Okay, so we could do a full show on this. And this is kind of like where we're going with things, right?
But we want to
Right.
keep focused on the leg positions. So
If your
Well,
leg
this is-
position is correct and the weight is down in your foot or ankle, depending on your physical being, and you will not fall on the horse's neck.
Right. You have to be in balance, and that's what we're
Right.
developing
All
here
about the
today.
leg.
come to your lower leg.
So I'm imagining that her leg swings back a little bit, which pivots her body forward and it makes her fall on the neck. That would be lack of base, basically, is what I'm picturing.
She
asking.
rides in if it's the same, I think it's the same kid. She rides in IEA, and I think, I'm not sure if she has her own horse or not, but she was very entertaining and a nice girl. And
She was eating her suppers, I remember.
her mom brought her supper in and gave it to her in the middle of the thing. It was kind of funny. So anyway,
Okay.
but Jesse, think about as you approach the jump to push the weight down in your ankle, hold your calf on your horse's side, and as you come to the jump, more in the ankle. As you leave the ground, more in the ankle, and when you land, more in the ankle. So when you
Yeah.
land, your ankle is your shock absorber.
You have to land in your heel on the back side. And I tell
Right.
people to think of it like this. The horse is going to pet the ground. It's going to bring its back up to you and stretch its head and neck out for balance, and then it's going to land on the back side. So when you feel your horse go to pet the ground to leave the ground, you step down into your heel and get the back of your knee in the saddle, and then try to land in your heel on the back side. And a pole behind the jump helps because they have to stay in their position until they pass the pole on the back side of the jump.
I was just going to say, staying up in 2-point when you land for an extra couple of steps until
For
you
the
learn to be
recovery
able to
stride.
control that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think all of these,
Stirrup length.
all of the exercises that we're talking about, from standing up, standing in balance on the ground, plus the up, up, down, or up in your 2-point for so many steps down, sitting trot for a few, keeping your lower leg, riding with a one stirrup. All these exercises will help with that base, which will in turn help with your not leaning forward, or what was it, falling on the horse's neck when you're going over a jump. So all these exercises are leading you into that, so that doesn't happen anymore. It's all coming from your base.
And everybody goes through the stage that you're at. You're not the only one that does it. Everybody in their jumping process, because you're working with a jumping position, they all had to go through what you're going through. In dressage, the big thing is, like you're talking about, coming up to a jump and centering yourself over it, right? Centering yourself over your riding position. Well, that should be done for every transition for those of you who are doing dressage or other things. So every time you're doing a transition, hunter jumper people too, and Western, every time you make a transition or a change with your horse, you should readjust your seats so you stretch down longer into your legs and adjust your seat as you're going into the new transition or movement. Just like when you approach a jump or a grid or something, you get more secure in your seat. Because we watched one video the other day of the rider pushing herself out of the seat as she came up to a fence instead of sinking down lower into her legs.
It's Suzanne. She was a jockey. Wow.
Racehorse
Oh,
jockey
Suzanne.
for 30
Look at that
years. I have
picture.
been doing dressage for a year and getting ready to start polls. And she's got a picture. Excellent, Suzanne. Thank you for coming on the show here. This is lovely. So start polls. Any suggestions?
Well, keeping your lower leg quiet is something that you obviously are thinking about and obviously feel that that's your weak point. Chances are, if your lower leg is moving around a lot, your stirrup length might not be correct, and you're probably not keeping your heel down and your calf connected. That's just a loose lower leg. So stand up in your stirrups, find that grip all the way down your leg where you are in a 2-point, and then try to maintain it as you sit or rise. That's the kind of exercise I would be working on. Hi, Jesse.
So, and I would also think about, when you gallop horses, you are on top of your horse, over your horse. And when you're riding, think about wrapping your legs, hugging the horse with your calf and keeping it there all the time. I think people sometimes think they're not supposed to have connection unless they're using their leg. You must have a basic connection all the time. So when you go to use your leg, you're not attacking them with your leg. So you're just squeezing. And I have a pair of halflingers for those of you who are just popping up here. And I ride one of them in a neoprene Western saddle. And my leg's in the same position as it is when I ride in the treeless saddle that I have. and when you own fat, wide creatures, you have to have those things. But the leg position's the same. And it's, so when you go from the thinking about being a jockey, it's a whole different muscle group. And to get down there and think about hugging your horse with your calf. And I think just sometimes it's just a little something that'll make you go, oh yeah, I get it. And you obviously have the balance, or I mean, right? I mean, she's obviously got the balance.
And if I could add something to that, because I started out bareback, which is kind of like racing because your legs aren't really on. But when you're changing a discipline from going from the racing scene to the dressage, is when you're putting your leg on the horse. First, you're going to have your thigh on the horse more than you would in the racing because it wraps around. You balance a lot on your thigh into your seat. But your lower leg, this is something that happens with a lot of riders. They don't know how far down their lower leg should be touching the horse. So what the best way to do that is to have somebody go in front of you and take a picture of you on the horse with you just sitting there with your feet in the stirrups, and notice where your calf reaches down the horse's side. In some horses, depending on the rider, that rider's leg may only reach this far above the calf, below the calf is all that's really touching their leg. Other people, it might go halfway down their leg. Very few people does their calf actually touch below their ankle. But you'll see a lot of the riders are being taught to touch their horse by hugging all around through their ankle. So as you're practicing going from your racing position, remember, have somebody take a picture from the front. See how far your lower leg actually touches the horse. You might be trying to wrap too much of a leg around the horse, which is like being a contortionist. And we've all done this, right, guys? Robert and Paddy and Laura, we've done all the mistakes before you. So don't think it's just you, right?
I would offer her to check her stirrup length first of all, because if she's reaching for her stirrups, it's going to make a very active leg happen. So the stirrup length needs to be correct first of all. Then she has to have the proper angle for the saddle that she's sitting.
What's the correct stirrup length?
Well, for a dressage saddle, I like the stirrup sitting below my ankle.
So the top of the stirrup tread hits the bottom of the ankle bone.
The pad on the stirrup where your foot goes bumps below your ankle bone.
Right.
Just below.
Just below.
For jumping, I like it the bumps just above your ankle. And that's when your leg is stretched straight down the horse's side, not when you have it in the leg position that you want to ride in. It's when you take your foot out of the stirrup, push your leg all the way down the saddle to straighten your knee. And then that's the gauge I go by. And you got to tweak it a little bit because everybody's body type is slightly different, but that's the one that works the best for me. And going over poles that she wants to start to do is simply now an exercise in following if you're posting the trot, because the horse has to suspend a little higher. So you got to be sure you're posting through and stepping into your heel each time to stay with the motion of that extra suspension. And like I said, it turns into simply an exercise in following to go over poles, not necessarily something that's big mystery or something that's a big step. It's just simply an exercise in following, and it's good for your horse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So everybody's kind of on the right, we're all on the same page, which is, we've been pretty much on the same page pretty much the whole time, which is kind
good.
of cool.
Okay, here's another good one here. Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, for taking the time to write a note to us here. I'm 47-year-old who has begun to ride so that I can share my 11-year-old's passion. She is in the large pony division now. I've taken 4 lessons and I'm posting on the correct diagonal most of the time. At this point, I've noticed in video that my shoulders are rotated forward. I do not have a nice straight back. Any advice?
Ha! My favorite exercise for that. Once you've got a good base, then you'll have control of your upper body. But I tell everybody, because you sit at the computer or you sit writing or you sit reading a book, your shoulders roll forward out of their socket. So the best thing I've taught people to do once they have a good base and they actually have control of their upper body is to shrug their shoulders up to your ears and hold it and then roll them back into their sockets. Well, that releases your shoulder blades. It opens up your back and it kind of puts your chest in a position that's flat and open and your back in a position that's flat and open. Love shrugging your shoulders up to your ears and holding it. It stretches out everything. Oh, look at Paddy. See how that works?
Look at that. Everything got up. I think if if you're posting like that quickly, I think that's great. I think it's great that you're writing so you can share something with your child. I think that's wonderful. Try not
Lucky
to,
her.
lucky her, try not to be too critical of yourself with those kind of things, unless your trainer's also getting you. But part of it, when you first start, it's using a different muscle group. And to be posting that quickly, you're probably fairly athletic. So it's a different muscle group. As we were talking before the show started, the best exercise to do for riding, if you want to get serious but want to keep fit, is swimming for long, lean muscles. Running, I know a lot of riders jog, but they do it more for the, what's the word?
Cardiovascular.
Endurance, cardiovascular, and endurance, being able to keep going and doing. But some of the people I know that run say they have to then go do half an hour of stretching to pull everything back out that gets cranked up. So I think you're doing great. I think your daughter's a lucky child. And yeah, and you can let her see this when you rewind it, how lucky she is, because you're being a
And
good
I find that a lot of people starting out either have trouble finding their diagonal or finding their lead. I've had some riders it's taken them 2 years before they can figure out what leg they're following or what diagonal they're following.
Yeah.
So good for
So
you.
you've done great. So we have
I-
a speaker. We have a speaker that you need to ask that question to, Laura. How long did it take her to learn how to do her diagonals on Wednesday?
On Wednesday, how long did it take her to learn how to do her diagonal? I don't remember.
It's Meredith coming. So
How
Wednesday.
long did it take her?
Just
yeah,
ask
Wednesday.
her.
We'll ask her. But I'm thinking, yeah, well, I don't remember what she said.
No,
What did she
ask her
say?
this coming Wednesday.
Oh,
I
did
just-
you know?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
That would
I will.
help.
I'll ask her then. So
Robert knows. We
Ryan,
all know. All
you
of the
come on
local
Wednesday,
Florida.
Ryan.
Yeah,
You come
should
on Wednesday, Ryan, and we're going to ask the pro trainer we have on Wednesday to Equitation how long it took her to get her diagonal. And,
Yeah, you do
you'll
that,
see-
Ryan.
Yeah, come
When
on
she
out,
was a
Ryan.
little girl, her mother's a professional. When she was a little girl, she would grab whatever other professionals, and we'd all stand around the side of the ring and
you
say,
have
in
to go
some
to-
Disney, it was a Disney name. I can't remember which it was.
Or
And if she's on the
pieces,
wrong
right?
diagonal, yeah, exactly. It was pretty funny. So you're doing great, Ryan.
I think he's doing great, and I think after 4 lessons, that all of these things, keeping your back straight, is going to come once he gets
Yeah.
an idea of where his body is. It's going to. But when you teach men to ride, they are very strong in their bodies, so they have to learn to relax and feel a bit more rather than and try to muscle things. They have to kind of relax more, breathe. It's probably
There's the
also-
was it Sally Swift that had the hook on the top of your head? That
Yeah.
said,
Yep, pull it
yeah,
up.
Sally Swift. Ryan was an instructor way back when in the 50s and 60s, maybe 40s. I don't know. Anyway, she had a cool thing where you should imagine that you have a rope on the top of your head and it pulls you up all the time. So you're always getting taller. So you should get taller from the waist up and longer from the waist down. Those are my words of wisdom.
Sarah asked, I have had people ask me, how do you not pinch with your knees when trying to keep your leg on and staying balanced at the same time? She asked me how she could keep her leg on and have her knee open and free at the same time.
I don't think the knee is off. It's
No,
just
gotta
not
be
squeezing.
your whole leg has to have an even kind of feel around your horse, right? And it's all the same thing.
And
Yes.
the
It's a
horse
light
body,
feel. From your
The horse's
thigh
body
to your inside of your calf muscle is what you want to think. And it's a rolling movement. It all rolls forward and it rolls back. If you can't feel the rolling movement, something's locked up and you won't get the fluidity that you're looking for, which we all have to go through.
and the horse's body type. Is it a round horse or a long horse? Some people's leg is going to fit textbook perfect on a horse that matches their length of leg. If you're on a horse that doesn't absolutely match your length of leg, you're going to have to modify it a little bit. But I think that to remember is not to force it. It's supposed to be natural.
Right.
Your toes follow your knees. Your leg stays underneath you and in behind the girth for a hunt seat saddle. And doing a 2-point and being able to stay there, you can feel what part of your leg is actually in the saddle. And I bet you'll find that it's your lower thigh, the back of your knee, and your upper calf.
Yes.
It's your natural point of contact when you're doing a 2-point, and that's going to remain when you sit. And that'll put your calf in play. Usually you use your ankle. In my book, you use your ankle as a severe exercise. We're all trying to learn how to ride invisibly. And a lower leg that's kicking or digging or whatnot, it's not textbook. It's not what your end result should be.
And it's what Paddy says. If I have to ask the question why is she kicking with her ankles and heels, it's going to ask that question.
Exactly.
Not when you're judging, right?
Yep.
So once again, stirrup length, body type. Are you naturally compatible with that horse's body type and your length of leg as well?
And if
So
you're not, then you've got to figure out something to change, whether it's saddle, stirrup length, types of stirrups. And there's a million things, because then this world is not a perfect world. And so if you have a horse that does everything great, but maybe is a little wide for you, then your trainer needs to look and see what we can do to fix that. If you feel uncomfortable about something, you should tell your trainer. Because we're not mind readers. And I know there are some people who are more approachable than others. However, if you ask your question the right way, it should be answered correctly. So just kind of think about that.
Laura Fitzpatrick thinks Fitzpatrick should watch this.
What are your echoes coming from there?
I don't know.
Well, cool. Well, we covered some really great exercises today. Now, I have an echo too?
Yeah, a little bit of an
Yep.
echo.
So Patricia, thank you, Patricia, for giving us this comment here. Patricia was our guest last week, our guest host on our position fixes on our Wednesday
Good thought,
program.
Patricia.
I love to use this exercise. Sometimes when riders work without stirrups, they can carry position faults with them. I think that's supposed to say with them, but are forced to ride even in the saddle without one stirrup. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really true.
Kelly Hoshko says post with one stirrup was a fantastic exercise. I learned of a coach I was working with. Yes,
I like Kelly's horse.
Very nice horse, Kelly. Kelly, put in the comments what the breed of that horse
Great look.
is. Yeah.
That's a great look. He looks big.
Lee Zappernick says Jill should be watching this. Susan McCall.
Remember, you can go back and watch this. So
That's right.
if you think this might work for somebody, they can go back in on jumping instructor.
I have other people that tried standing on the stairs with their toes on the steps and their heels hanging off, then started pushing your heels down constantly, which helped the learning to stretch your heels.
Stretches the back of your calf. Yep.
Well, that is not natural, especially for the ladies that wear a lot of high heels. You have to stretch those muscles and get comfortable with that. You have
That's
to.
me. That's me.
I meant to, yes, part of the problem, I get forward with the upper body. So this is the jockey. Yes, the part of the problem, I get forward with the upper body. My leg and jockey saddle is on the horse's ribs, so it feels like nagging him all the time. Philippe
There's a
says,
place. Yeah. Well, I want to go back to the jockey person. So very quickly,
Suzanne?
if you'll just lengthen your Suzanne, if you'll just lengthen your leg and hug your calf to the side where you feel a little pressure on your calf, you're going to be perfect. Because you have the balance. You've got all the stuff.
Right.
You just have to.
And you will feel like you're negative all the time, because with racing, you don't use your legs like you do with dressage and the other sports, but you have the experience to be able to do that. So just be patient with yourself. You're going to feel like you're nagging him because you're using your body in a totally different way. I mean, you were riding race horses, which most of us would do, right?
Totally different center of gravity. You know,
Right.
your ankles, your knees, your hips, and your elbows are all closed very, very tightly, and to stay in the horse's center of gravity when they're galloping. The more balanced horse and the more straighter your saddle is, you have everything starts to open up. And it's almost diametrically opposite angles from racehorsing to dressage.
Right.
All the angles are way open.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a whole different skill set of muscles and balance.
But you'll have no fear of going forward.
No, they won't. She'll be good at that.
Amy says, I do, and I see people squeezing with their heels. This is coming from the heels. Every time they sit, trying to keep the horse moving forward and engaged. How do you get out of the habit, keeping a quieter lower leg and still keeping your horse moving forward? Well, that is getting your horse moving off your leg.
And not your heel.
Make them take some responsibility to do the work. If you're having to dig your heels into them every single step to get them to trot, they're taking zero responsibility to carry you and be a partner. So a stick, when you use your leg, tap with the stick. Condition them that a little bit of leg means go forward.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the key is getting the horse to take some responsibility so that you don't have to put your ankle on them the whole time.
Exactly. Okay, Ryan says, thank you. Maybe really appreciate what she can do with her pony. Thank you all. Thank you very much, Ryan.
And we
Kelly.
appreciate what you're doing with your daughter. We love having new people enter the horse industry and become a part of the family that we've created.
Kelly says, do you have any good exercise for heel? Have any good heel stretching exercises? Have a few students with one flexible and the other one stiff ankle that affects the release of the heel.
I would go back to the start right away with the ground exercises and put them on the ground like we did with Laura. And all you have to do is put your hand on their head and have them do a squat. Can you do a squat? Push their head down, see if they'll come up with your hand, because you can do this. You can actually follow their head up and down. You push them down, and then you bring them up. And what it does is they have to flex all their joints. It's really not so much about jamming the heel down as it is learning how to put their weight down evenly over both legs and into their heels.
And then the other thing too is to make sure that there's not a physical reason for that.
I was just going to say, first thing I would do is if they do one or the other, then make sure they haven't had surgery in an ankle or an injury. And I remember teaching one person once, I totally not putting their heels down. And she told me she was a ballet dancer. So it was a whole new muscle thing for her.
It's like our the race rider we have here.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, she's going to have a bent ankle. All the ankles are going to be closed really tight.
Right.
I think that, like I said, it's supposed to be natural, but we don't walk around on our heels with our toes up. That's not natural.
No, it isn't.
But it is important when you don't have the ground under your feet to have your good base. And depressing your heel below your toe is exactly how to accomplish that. So standing on a door stoop and holding on to the door jamb and letting the weight go down into your heel and stretching your calf, that starts to allow your muscles to do something a little different that they've probably never done before, especially if you're a beginner. So important to stretch with anything. Any sport you're going to stretch, and that's a really important one for horsemen, is a good flexion to your ankle. And if it's impossible for you to do the door jam exercise or even standing on the jump standard and put your feet on either side of a wing standard and let your heel go down and hold on to the standards, a good one if you're at the barn.
And that's a good one to do if you are teaching somebody, Kelly, and they say they can't do it, give them homework. This is what you're going to do. This heel's working well. This one's not working so well. This is what you're going to do before our next lesson. You are going to stand on the door jamb, door stoop, hold on, and let your heels come down, stretching one leg then the other, both at the same time. And you can even do that on top of the horse with your stirrups.
Sinking softly into your heels. It's not a forcing or a stretch. It's got to be the weight of gravity sinking softly. So there's always a spring.
That's a real tongue twister. Say that.
Sinking softly.
Sinking softly.
That's better than softly sinking, I guess.
Elaine Leslie Barrington says, always worried my stern plank is not long enough. So rule of thumb is top of the stirrup tread, bottom
somewhere
of the
around your ankle.
Somewhere around your ankle, depending on your
somewhere around your ankle, depending on what you're doing.
With the
Elaine, do you have a trainer, Elaine? What does your trainer say about your stirrup length? I'm assuming, but it needs to be comfortable.
Jesse says, do different saddles affect how much you should use your lower leg? If so, how does it affect how much you use your lower leg?
It doesn't affect how you use your lower leg, but it will affect where your lower leg is going. So when you do like the IEAs and you get a different saddle, look at that cool horse.
Oh,
Do
cute.
the IEAs and you get a different saddle and all that stuff. You have to just fit your body in there to make it work. So be very conscious of the fact that that saddle feels different.
And if your
Kelly, you
stirrups
love
are
homework. She's a Dutch warm-blood mare. Chablis out of Indoctro. Numero. Wellington lines on the dam side. Adorable. She is so cool. And you must be tiny.
She's tiny. Okay, so Holly says, great advice. Thank you for doing this.
Wait, Holly, I want to know what that horse is.
It looks like it's been clipped.
been clipped for that?
Patricia is fingers crossed and hand clapping, I think.
Thank
Or
you.
those-
Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly says thank you. Okay, we saw Kelly. Elaine says, help, I need to learn everything. I need to learn everything. Good one,
I
Elaine.
love it.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
come
then you're
join
gonna
us
come
again
on
on Wednesday, Elaine. And then you need to.
Wednesday.
And Laura has a send in a video thing that she
Yep.
does. So on Saturday. So you should just join us. Just move in with us. We're okay.
Yeah,
we're
we
cool
can do
for people to hang around with. And what we're going to start doing this next week, so those of you who are professionals know, it's getting pretty exciting now because we've connected, as you've seen, with some of the best industry professionals that there are out there. But we're going to start in, we're bringing in, we've got people that are going to be special. Oop, my camera's falling down. We're going to be starting with marketing. We have a lady who will be coming in. I'll tell you more about her soon. And she works with what you should do with press releases, if you have press interviews, how to do the PR. Then we also have marketing people that will be coming in. So we'll be going more and more places where we can help you professionally develop your business, not only with the horse and rider and training, but with marketing and business, and of course the legal topics as well. So join us here. You can find us here. We're on Jumping Instructors Live. I know some of you are watching us on Dressage Instructors Live. We'll also be starting Dressage Instructors Live soon too, but we wanted to get our foundation.
I won't be there.
No, she won't be there. But this is a topic that's important for
It'll
people
be okay.
in every discipline in the world.
Yep. So join us on Wednesday as well this evening at 7:30. We've got the concussion thing, and also on Wednesday. Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, we're doing the rider position fixes. And if you have a rider position fix that you would like for us to discuss, please send us a photo and we'll put it in the queue for our show.
And I'd like to thank Robert for coming in today.
Thank you, Robert.
It's been very nice.
It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it really made a difference.
We're all entertaining each other. It's perfect.
So thank you so much. Now go use this stuff.
We'll see you at the next day. May all your
another time. Be safe.
On the side of the fence.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.